I'm almost 50, strong, clear, energized. Training hard, living clean, fully alive. But it didn't start here. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I felt hopeless. But I chose a different path. No meds, just science, discipline, and results. Now I'm symptom-free and asking the tough questions that move us all forward. This is Hope and Health. Let's go. Welcome to Hope and Health. I'm Mathew Embry, and today we're with Keira O'Donnell. Keira is a mother, a volunteer, and an advocate for people with multiple sclerosis after her daughter was diagnosed with a pediatric form of MS. Keira, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you first tell us about your daughter's diagnosis?
My daughter was diagnosed at 15 years old. It was out of the blue for us. We had no MS in our family, either side, completely taken aback. One day she came home with a really bad headache. She just started high school. She was 15, as I say, and I thought, she's got a headache. So she couldn't really see out of one eye. And I was like, okay, that can come with migraines. I've heard that before. Just rest, take some Tylenol here, there, just take a rest. And I just kind of left her for the day, I have to say, and then I checked on her the next day because she was just kind of sick that day. That was kind of it. Next day, she's like, I'm like, oh, you look better. She's walking around. I said, she says, yeah, it's fine. I'm good now. She says, but I still can't see out of one eye. And I was, that's not okay. We're taking you into the doctor immediately in the morning. You're not going to school. This was on a Sunday. So I thought Monday morning, we're going straight to our doctor. And I took her to our doctor. He was immediately suspicious that it might be something bad. And sent us right across the road to an optometrist that he's friendly with. That optometrist sent us directly to the eye clinic at the hospital, and they almost immediately had an MRI set up for her. It was actually so fast. I was pretty impressed with how quick they were to take care of her and figure it out, because I know some people in the MS community wait, months for an MRI, but she was in within 2 days.
Wow. And
she had her MRI. She had innumerable lesions. Couldn't even count them all, and was diagnosed with MS pretty much within a span of 3 days.
Wow.
We were blindsided.
Yeah. So for people who don't know much about multiple sclerosis, it's a neurological disease where it's diagnosed where people find lesions in the brain and in the spine, which eventually can cause things like disability and all these types of things.
Yeah.
So for a mother, you have a 15-year-old daughter. Suddenly she's blind in one eye. You have these objective neurological symptoms. What are you thinking? Are you thinking brain tumor at the time? Are you thinking stroke? I had no idea. To be honest with you, it's kind of funny, but a couple days before this incident, it was in 2017, September 2017, there was a solar eclipse. And I thought she looked at the solar eclipse. Wow. I was like, you did it, didn't you? Because everyone was all hyped up for it. And She kept saying, no, Mom, I didn't. Because I thought she must have done some damage to her eye. It never even crossed my mind. So, this is a tough question for anybody, because I've been there. I get asked about, the early days in my diagnosis. What's it like to suddenly have a diagnosis like multiple sclerosis told to you for your daughter?
I didn't even know anything about it. I really knew very little. From my knowledge, I thought it's degenerative. She's going to end up in a wheelchair. We've got a whole different life ahead of us. And that was all I knew. And so it was really scary. Yeah, really scary. We were, immediately given a neurologist at the Children's Hospital. Their pediatric MS, I have since found out, is only about 5% of MS cases. So it's a very small proportion of MS cases are under 18. And so there's no MS specialist at the Children's Hospital. It's a neurologist that deals with all sorts of neurological issues. So we were with her first, and it wasn't a good experience.
Really?
It was not a good experience at all. She put a lot of fear into us, a lot of fear into my daughter, was pushing her to get on a drug, but at the same time wouldn't recommend a drug. And gave us a pamphlet of a few drugs to choose from, said she couldn't give certain ones that were there that she had crossed off because she couldn't give it to a pediatric case. But none of them had been tested on pediatrics. So that was a bit of a red flag for me right from the get-go. So anyway, we went home with this and I thought, this is insane. How in the world can why am I choosing this? I don't know anything about this. So I'm reading up, and I think it was somebody, I can't remember who it was, told me, look at the MS Society UK website, because they do a good, kind of explanation of all the different drugs. And I have to agree, I thought that was excellent. But one of the best things they did, well, we ended up on Tecfidera for my daughter. And we chose Tecfidera because she was very needle phobic. And there was no way she was going to self-inject every day. That was just never going to happen. She was already stressed out about everything. So we thought, okay, we'll do the Tecfidera. At least it's just a pill. But that was literally the only reason, because it was a pill. Nothing to do with any other knowledge of how the drugs work or anything.
So the first line of defense was a drug that the neurologist recommended for you.
Yes.
Now, before we get into and that's a hard choice to all of a sudden, what kind of medications we're going to do with what, especially when you're shocked with the diagnosis.
Yes.
So you mentioned something really interesting to me. You talked about that suddenly there was a huge amount of fear that started to happen in that first appointment. Can you discuss what was said? What kind of things were said that brought that fear for you and your daughter?
Well, by the time we got to see the neurologist, she had a lot more symptoms than just the optic neuritis. She started to get numbness in her arm and weakness. And then that would go away within a few days. And she had the same in her leg. And she was still going to school then. And she'd go in on crutches to make it look like she, had a sports injury because she played soccer. And then she hurt her ankle, because she didn't want to explain to her schoolmates and her friends what was going on. But then, she had the MS hug. She had this feeling, she said, that somebody was tightening her necklace around her throat and she couldn't really breathe properly. And so we were telling the neurologist this, and she looked at me with my daughter sitting right next to me, and she's 15, she's not a little kid. And she said, have you ever considered that she might be faking some of these symptoms? And I could not believe it. Could not believe it. And this was very traumatic. My daughter still remembers this because she said she had no spinal lesions. She only had brain lesions, and you need spinal lesions to have symptoms in your arms and legs, she told us, which I've now found out that's not true.
Right.
But I do think that that's part of what happens when you don't have an MS specialist as a neurologist and just,
right.
A pediatric neurologist that does everything. I don't think she knew, but I did not feel like we were in good hands.
Got it. So
and that gives you a lot of fear when you're dumped with these symptoms in your child and no one seems to know what's going on.
So the symptoms are starting to accelerate.
Yes.
She's having more and more neurological problems. As a parent, how are you feeling? Are you feeling helpless? You out of control? Or are you panicking?
A little bit, but the way I deal with these things is I buckle down. I'm not the type of person to just kind of give up to it and, give in to what's happening. I figure out what's going on and say, we're going to do something about this.
So you've got a situation in which your daughter has these symptoms you're out of control of. You've got a doctor who's questioning the credibility of your daughter at the same time.
Yeah.
What's your next move?
Well, at the time, we didn't know too much, and we thought we needed to go on the drugs, so we did. And we took the Tecfidera. But again, more red flags happened with that. I ended up on the phone. We had to go through the whole insurance thing first, so we didn't get it right away at that appointment. And I ended up on the phone with her, and she was telling me that, she's got it all approved and it's coming through. And I said, well, what dose are you going to put her on? And she says, oh, well, there's only one dose, and it's only been tested in the clinical trials at this one dose. And I was like, but they've never tested on children. And my daughter is very tiny. She's even now at 23 years old, she's 5'2" and weighs about 110 pounds, But back then she was really tiny. And I said, that makes no sense to me. She's so small. That makes no sense. This has all been tested on potentially 200-pound men. Got
it. So let's, if we back this up, I'm just trying to put myself in your headspace and to think about, other people who might be going through this. You've been given this diagnosis, a scary one at that, And now you're given a menu of drug options, which you don't know anything about.
Right.
So what's your next move there? Do you start researching this on the internet? Like, how do you start getting enough information to make an informed decision if you're not being told what the best drug option is?
I totally agree. I ended up on that website. First of all, as I was saying, we chose Tecfidera because it was a pill. That's it. It was the only pill option for us. It's crazy. It's crazy to choose that way. And I didn't feel comfortable with it, but I was also in so much fear that I felt like we had to take this. We had to do this, that we had no other choice because she was in just one symptom after the next and she was getting worse at this point. But then we ended up, so I guess at this point too, we were starting, a friend of mine had given me a book, the Wahls Protocol book. I did not know anything about any of it. I thought, okay, well, thanks. She says, she's a nurse actually. And she said, she's heard that this can help for some people.
And so that's
diet. And she just dropped it off. It's diet.
That's diet.
But I had no idea.
Okay, so. But
I read the book, of course, because I'm looking for information at this point. I'm just ready to soak up anything from anyone. And I read the book right away and thought, you know what? This looks like something we could do. We could do this ourselves.
Got it. So what I find super interesting is, and we can get right back into it, because in my journey, something almost identical happened. It was a teacher, and a teacher suddenly appeared in our lives and gave us a book. And that book slowly, not actually, I should take that back. It actually quickly led us to diet as being something that's important. So if you're aware, I guess possibly these things happen for us.
Yeah.
Now, this book was written by a doctor, Dr. Terry Wahls. I know of the book.
Yeah.
It was called the Wahls Protocol, I believe.
Yes.
Yep. So you start reading this. It's written by a doctor, someone who had multiple sclerosis, someone who came out of a tilt chair through nutrition, who's experienced incredible recovery. Do you start putting this into practice right away? Do you cross-check it with your doctor? Do you go to the internet?
Right away. Like I went to the pantry, started throwing things out.
Wow.
Right away. As soon as I read the book, I said, okay, we're doing this. And we're going level 3. We're doing the high, we're going whole hog here. And are you in? And she, of course, was, because she's, just doing so poorly. So I started cleaning out the pantry, cleaning out the fridge. I threw it out and I said, the whole family's doing this.
Wow.
We're all doing this. Nothing's in the house. She's 15. She's not going to have ice cream or, candies there to tempt her.
And you went all in.
Yeah, all in. And we did level 3. And the rest of the family did maybe one of the lower levels, I would say. But her and I did level 3 for about a month to 6 weeks. And I would say within the first week, she was improving.
Wow.
The first week some of her symptoms were going away. It was amazing.
So
she could see it. She could see it herself. That made the difference.
Wow. So you make this major shift in your family and your approach to how you eat and your nutrition. Yeah. You get after it. You do the hard work. You empty out all the things in your cupboard and your fridge that aren't part of the diet. Yeah. And you get to work and you start the program and you start to see differences right away.
Right away. Yeah. And by about a month to 6 weeks, she was completely symptom-free except the optic neuritis.
Wow. That
stayed for about 6 months. But even then, we were told she got over that way faster than most MS patients.
Okay, so you've now just had so much change in your life. You have this new illness you're dealing with. You have a whole new nutritional path. The upheaval is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But your daughter's getting better.
But she's getting better. That's all that matters. Exactly.
So what do you do? Do you call your doctor? Do you go back to the children's hospital?
Well, we were still trying this drug. So in the middle of all this, the drug was coming in. So we talked to her. We said, you don't have to do this. Because at this point, I'm seeing her improve. And I'm saying, you don't have to do this. You don't have to take it. But she was scared by everything the doctor had told her.
Right.
And, she's 15. She's not a little kid. I can't just force her. I could, but that's not how we parent. Mm-hmm. We discussed things through. And my husband was on side with whatever we chose, really. Mm-hmm. And she said, I want to try it. Let's see. And she says, because, I don't want to get worse. Mm-hmm. So we did. And I actually ended up talking the doctor down to a quarter dose, if you can believe it. Okay. Because I was unsure about the dosage, as I was saying. And she said, well, we could start at a half. And I said, why a half? why not a quarter? See if it works, you know? So she said, okay, let's start at a quarter. So that's what we did. She got worse again after the first dose.
Wow.
And we called the doctor immediately. And she said, just keep taking it. It's probably just taking her body some time to get used to. Second day, worse again. Third day, more symptoms. Fourth day, we had to drop our other 2 kids off the neighbors and rush her into hospital carrying her. She couldn't stand up. She couldn't even sit up. It was terrible. And that was the big changing moment for us. So that was it.
She goes on.
We're done. No more drugs. Yeah.
She goes on the drug and things start getting worse.
Worse. Yeah. But we had already started the diet. So we had seen her get better on the diet too.
So do you tell the neurologist this? Do you tell the doctors this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. But she kept telling us, stay on the drug.
And what did you do?
We stopped. Because we said, this is insane. She's in ER. We can't stay on this drug.
So you go off the drug.
Yeah.
You're on a new nutritional path. What happens next?
She improves. She improves. Improves to the point of no more symptoms.
And how long did this take?
So in total, probably about 6 weeks. I'm trying to remember back because it's been a while now, but about 6 weeks it took her to come to symptom-free.
So at this point, is your neurologist asking you, like, what are you doing? What changes have you made? Are you going to go back on the drug? Well, what kind of interactions are happening now?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
No. No follow-up call, nothing. Once we dropped the drug, we were on our own.
How'd that feel?
I kind of expected it at that point, I think, but I was surprised. But I kind of expected that, especially after the ER visit, even the ER doctors couldn't do anything without talking to our neurologist about it because they knew she had MS. And I feel like there's not a lot of day-to-day care for MS patients from their neurologist. You can talk to a nurse anytime you want, for sure. But usually it's just when symptoms pop up and they give you guidance and tell you, whether or not you need steroids, really. That's about it.
Right. Now, did you tell your neurologist that your daughter had started this nutritional path?
I didn't, no. And I don't know why I didn't. I think we just weren't really at that point when I hadn't seen her when we were really, seeing a difference with the diet.
So now you're a few months in, she's still on the diet. She's improved or she's, symptom-free.
Yeah.
And why do you keep going? Like, what gave you the confidence that this was the path?
We started meeting other people, yourself included. So it was about this point that I was looking, as I was saying, soaking up information. I found out that Living Proof was playing at the Calgary Film Festival.
And just for our audience who may not know this, it's a documentary about my journey, using nutritional strategies to control my MS. So yeah. you watched this film.
My mother-in-law flew out from Scotland immediately upon her diagnosis and was there with us for this whole thing. And I said, we're going. We got to see this film. And so we did. She and I went to it. And we were both just blown away by it. We had already started the Wahls Protocol by this point. So again, it just kind of solidified that we could do this. She's young. There's no better time for her body to heal than when her body's young, right? That's how we kind of felt. Right. And so we got to get her on this. She's got the best long-term outcome possibility, I think, using this kind of a path.
So you have this situation in which, you've got this, I'm going to say awful diagnosis. You take a path where you're going to investigate nutrition and taking control that way over the disease. You start to see real world change where your daughter's getting better, she's stable. And then you don't stop. You branch out and you see there's a community of other people doing something similar.
Yeah.
Why did you keep moving?
Well, we knew there was no drug cure by this point. So if there's no drug cure, no treatment, we've got to do everything possible to reverse this in her and help her body heal. And I guess I wasn't totally sure if it was just diet that was going to do it or if there were other things by the time, I was talking to different people. And so we started doing other things too, not just the diet. But yes, we did start branching out. and trying a whole bunch of other stuff.
All right, so let's get into it. So you're branching out. I mean, what are you doing, and how are you making those choices to say, hey, this is worth trying, or this is a scam? If someone's trying to take my money.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think we did a bit of that too. I think I have way too big a supplement drawer because I did fall into some of that. But mostly talking to people, and it's amazing when you listen to. Even I'd listen to somebody, even if I thought their idea was just complete quackery. Doesn't mean I'd do it, but I'd listen and I'd give them the time of day and think, you know what, maybe this person has something to offer. I don't know. One of those people was a chiropractor that he was the father of one of my daughter's friends.
Okay.
And he found out about her diagnosis and approached us and said, the work that I do can help with the problems that she's having. Now, he never really approached it in the way of dealing with MS but dealing with more all of the things that led up to this diagnosis.
Got it. So this is a very specific chiropractic procedure called NUCCA, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So NUCCA, I've had this treatment numerous times. I definitely share my journey with that and how important I think NUCCA is. Can you explain to us what exactly is NUCCA?
So before I go there, I'll just say that my daughter was a competitive soccer player before her diagnosis. Yeah. She had at least 2 major concussions playing soccer and did a lot of heading the ball. As a young person who's, not fully myelinated in her brain already. Now, when we met the doctor that we saw, his name is Dr. Hasek, and when he talked to us, he said, I know about her concussions. He says, every time there's a head injury, there is a neck injury. Now, his specialty in NUCCA is just the atlas and axis.
Okay, so that means, for people who have no idea what that means, is like where your spinal cord more or less attaches to your head.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to argue is that literally your head's not on properly.
That's exactly what he says. He's going to put your head on straight.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to adjust the head so it's fitting properly,
right.
Correct?
So the atlas and axis are not askew.
Yes.
And when they are askew, you've got a lot of veins and arteries, and even your vagus nerve is affected, that go through the bones.
Okay, so your head's connected to your spine like this. You get a concussion, you're playing soccer, you head the ball too much, and just it's a little bit off.
Right.
And then suddenly you've got blood flow issues, you've got nerve issues.
Exactly.
All flow issues from the brain.
Right.
So how do we fix this?
He straightens it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a real procedure, but very, very gentle as well. If you've had it, there's no cracking. It's not violent, anything. I was a little nervous, I have to say, initially going to see a chiropractor because I'd heard horror stories there too. But I just believed what he said fit with her history. And I thought, this makes so much sense. So let's do this. But we did wait until she was better. And in fact, he wanted that. He wanted to make sure she did all, and he actually advocates for pretty much the exact best bet diet. And he tells all of his patients to do a diet similar to that. But he likes you to be stable before you go into that. And she was, and she did the adjustments, and she was off quite a bit.
Got it. Because, they check, they do all the measurements to see what degrees you're off. I mean, my daughter as well had a concussion. We took her there almost immediately. Yeah. And she was dramatically off. We had it corrected. I've had that corrected with my son. I've had it multiple times done myself because I've had my, bell rung more times than I can count when I was a young athlete. Yeah. Now, did you see any immediate benefits then, or is this just something that you're just trying to find all of the things to give her the best chance to heal and be healthy?
Probably a bit of the latter. I don't think we saw it right away, but within a few weeks, she felt better. She could tell that there was something going on. And, so I think it was definitely, I think it's something to help keep her stable for the rest of her life, to make sure that she's got that proper blood flow. It just, to me, makes sense.
Okay, so we've got nutrition, we've got NUCCA. Yeah. What else do you explore?
Well, we did do a few other things. We hired a building biologist and had him go through the house and take away any extra sort of EMFs that were coming into the house during sleep. There was a book I read at the time too, which was called Why We Sleep by Dr. Mathew Walker. I loved that book so much, but it taught me about the importance of sleep. So I started protecting her sleep like nothing else. She had to sleep really well. I made sure she slept soundly, and I made sure she had no EMFs, nothing happening around her.
What's an EMF?
So that's like any sort of electromagnetic frequencies. Okay. So we shut down the Wi-Fi at night. It was actually right underneath her bed. Initially, we end up shutting all that down. And it's not hard. We turn it on in the day. We're not like living like cavemen. We still want to, live a normal life and, the century we're in. But, at night while she's sleeping, we wanted to make sure that she was fully healing. We also got her something called a magnetical sleep pad, which helps. It basically mimics grounding. It's got a bunch of magnets in it. So we got her that to help, again, her restore herself at night while she's sleeping. So we did that. We got her, I ended up converting a basement shower that we never used into a red light therapy and infrared sauna. So I had her going in there regularly.
So, there was no stone left unturned.
Any stone I could find, I tried. That seemed not crazy. We also tried acupuncture, but the needles freaked her out too much. So we couldn't go back. It made her more stressed than anything else. And that, as you know, stress is just not good for MS. Yeah.
And I share this with my story. Acupuncture had a major impact on me. I had some symptoms neurological symptoms that just wouldn't go away. And when I walked into an acupuncturist and he said, I'll have these gone in 3 months. And he did. And to this day, I'm thankful for that experience. Now, you said something interesting. You said you didn't want to do the crazy things. How do you draw the line between crazy and non-crazy?
Well, and that's hard because, I've changed. That line has moved for me over the years. Like some of the things I would have thought as crazy 8 years ago, not so crazy now. It's funny. I definitely had my degree is in sciences and, I just had a very scientific mind. I grew up as an atheist, very regimented, proof-based, everything. And now I think, there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we don't know. And there was one thing my dad said once, he was he was an engineer. He gave me a lot of, my scientific beliefs. But when we were doing the diet, he says, it could just be placebo effect. And I said, you know what? If it's placebo effect, that's fine, as long as it works. And then I started thinking about, why does placebo effect even work?
Right,
it's 30%, but why does it work? I'm like thinking, to be honest, the drug they were going to put her on was 30%. Supposedly, placebo's just as good, Right. So maybe we can carry on with that. I'm like, I'm good with placebo.
Well, the power of the mind,
so whatever
right?
she believes in. And I read books about that too, and there is so much to that. There's so much to mindset. There's so much to belief. I think in many ways you can kind of believe your way into health. In many ways, if you believe you can do it, that's the first step to getting there.
I completely agree with you. And I think for me, where I share my story, my journey is that belief of getting better and being very aware that the people and the information will come to you to get you there if you can just see it. And were there examples of that? Were there examples of serendipitous events for you? Things that just looking back don't make sense, where these people would have come into your life, or information or events that led you to where you are today? It's true. There's been a lot of that for me. And I think I just wasn't as aware to notice it before. Now let's talk about today. Okay. Where is your daughter's health today? How many years has it been and where's she at? So it's been 8 years. She's been 7.5 years symptom-free. Wow. Yeah. So she hasn't been completely out of the clear, I would say. She had one episode about a year ago where she got a 6th cranial nerve palsy, and we thought it was a relapse.
we were convinced of it. But we ended up talking to her neurologist. We took her in. She's now at the, the adult clinic.
Yeah.
We did move her over there pretty quick, to be honest. And she had a cold sore outbreak.
Got it.
Now, she gets cold sores a lot. And she had this really bad outbreak. It tracked right up the side of her face into her ear, and she had vertigo. And they ended up saying, no, I think this is the herpes. It's nothing to do with MS. This is not an MS relapse. And she should be fine once her cold sore gets taken care of. They gave her an antiviral for the herpes, and she did get better.
Wow.
Never to be seen again. Like, that was fine again. So, now we've got this antiviral on hand because we know now that it seems to be a bit of a trigger for neurological issues or something for her.
Well, you know what? I think that is a really important point to bring up, because years ago, about almost a decade ago, I too started getting neurological symptoms in my hands. And I thought, oh man, here we go. It turned out to be a neck injury. But I had to go digging deep and have an MRI, and I had to go see, additional doctors. But some of me wonders if I would have gone back to the MS clinic, would they have just said, well, your MS must be progressing.
Right.
So the question becomes, do you feel that no matter what health challenges start to present, each and every single one, we've got to dig deep for ourselves?
I believe that entirely. I actually don't even love to label it. And this is why I've always said with my daughter, I'm actually hopeful for a misdiagnosis down the road. I think the body can heal. I think we have to find out the root causes, and I think they can be different for each person. But I think you have to address all of those and go back and figure out what led up to this. Because she wasn't born with MS. She was a perfectly healthy person. There's no other MS in our family. And, to my knowledge, I don't think they've ever found an MS gene. So there must be something big environmentally. So
right now she's 8 years out. She's symptom-free. Is she still on the program?
She's on the program. She hasn't had a speck of gluten or dairy in that entire time. Although it's funny, I should say that completely, because it was probably early on in her diagnosis. She was well, everything was good. She and I decided to go out to a restaurant the first time. And we thought, okay, we're going to try and, I'll teach you and we'll figure this out together, how you can order things in a restaurant and still adhere to the diet. And she was fine at this point, hadn't had a symptom in months. And she sat down and we did this. We talked to the waiter. Gluten, dairy was the big things, and she got her food. In the chair, her arm starts going numb. And sure enough, they didn't realize butter was dairy.
Right.
And she had eaten butter at that sitting. So that too just solidified it in her brain. So she knows she's not to touch it. But she's also not really confident telling people, her friends or, the general public out there, I have MS and so I can't eat gluten or dairy.
Right.
So she tells people she's celiac and she has a dairy allergy.
Yeah, let's get into that. The stigma of multiple sclerosis.
It's big.
I tried my absolute best to keep it quiet. For 20 years, I tried to keep it quiet because I wanted to live whatever a normal life meant. And I also felt that there was a stigma with the disease.
Yeah.
That's my own personal journey. What have you seen? And can you see what you've seen in your daughter? I don't want you to speak for your daughter, but what have you seen with her?
Well, one thing for sure is nobody really in the general public believes you can treat it or manage it with diet. So that's a stigma right there. So if you're trying to do that, they roll their eyes at you.
Even with all the scientific literature that suggests diet can play a major impact.
That's out there enough for general public who isn't in the MS world to know about.
So if you have celiac or you have diabetes, people totally understand why you're going to change your diet or order something differently at a restaurant.
Right.
But if you say, I have MS, you get that look.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. You should be able to, just freely go about eating what you want to eat.
and hopefully, shows like this or a podcast like this, we're starting to shake up that stigma and educate people of the power that nutrition can have for people with MS and how important it is for them to be able to live comfortably in our society and feel comfortable sharing this and avoiding certain foods.
Exactly.
Now, as a mother, you've gone through this, but you found a healing journey. You embraced a community of people who also had success. You had the ability to be able to go through the research and try all sorts of different things, but you saw positive results.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just stop right there and say, we got this, everybody, I'm going back to my life? Here you are on a national television and you're on this podcast, you're on the board of a federally registered charity, MS Hope, to be able to help people. You're advocating. Why?
Because there's a lot of work to do. And there's a lot of, I think, information that needs to get out to newly diagnosed people, especially for me. I have a special place for pediatric cases. There's a lot of pediatric cases that are not doing as well as my daughter. I'm in that world too. And, I think we get told too, same thing. Oh, she's got mild MS. It's luck. I get told that a lot. I'm like, luck isn't scientific. That doesn't fit with my science brain. It's like there is something we're doing here and it needs to be shared, I do think that we're doing something right. And I'm not naive to think that she won't ever get another relapse or, that she might not have hard times coming down the road. And she knows that too. But, as long as we can keep it at bay day to day, it's one day better. Exactly.
And so the information do you feel like the information we're discussing, the science-based nutrition, science-based chiropractic care.
Yeah.
Do you think this information is not getting to patients?
I don't think it is. It's certainly not from our neurologists. Like my daughter's been seeing the neurologist yearly, getting her MRIs. And every year, even though she's been doing super well, no symptoms, nothing, he still tries to push her on a drug every single year. And it was just this past year that he said to her, you know what? I'm actually okay with you continuing on as you are. You must have mild MS.
Right.
But it didn't start that way. She had so many symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So what is mild MS? Is it that she's doing something right? Is her body healing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I remember I was angry about that because we put so much work into this.
Yeah.
Work, money, time, everything, like it's been a hard journey, but worth it in our eyes for sure. And that was when I sent you that email too, to say, I was kind of angry about that response. And, your response was funny. It was like, I kind of thought, I'd get some, angry about it as well. But you weren't. You said to me that, that's a great thing. We're making progress, that he's actually considering the case of mild MS.
Right.
And that neurologists in past wouldn't have even considered that that's even a possibility with MS, that it only progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really changed how I think about it. And, it's good.
So where do you think we are today? And from your perspective, what's got to get done?
Yeah, I would like to see more root cause attention. I would like for us to find out what is causing MS. And maybe it's different for different people. I'm even open to that. But what is the root cause of it? And then let's address that. Is it Epstein-Barr virus? Then let's find an antiviral for that. It's like whatever it is that is causing this pattern to happen in people, we need to figure it out and then address that. Stop addressing symptoms that can cause more problems down the road. And then you've got to heal the MS plus the side effects of the drug, in my opinion.
For a parent who has a child who's just diagnosed with whatever, and it's a scary, it's a frightening disease. You're watching this right now. What's that first step, and what does that journey look like?
I would say you have to advocate for yourself and for your child. You have to learn, be open to information that's out there, and you have to take control of your own health. Nobody's coming to save you. Like, you have to do the work, figure out what it is you have to change in your life, and just implement it. Figure out your why. What do you have to live for?
Mm-hmm.
What, if it's your kid, that's your kid. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get teary even talking about that, because that was my why.
Mm-hmm. I can totally understand why this is an emotional question for me. And for me, my kids are the top of my pyramid.
Yeah.
That's what I always say.
Yep.
I say they're the top, and anything below has to support them.
Exactly.
That's it. So,
I don't know a parent out there that doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. And so then I can completely get it. But if we, focus the lens on you now a bit.
Okay.
Right? I mean, what changes has it made to your life?
I've become a lot more in tune with what the needs are of my kids, my daughter, my kids in general. Let them be their own people a little bit more. It's had to make me step back, honestly. I think there was a point, and I think this can happen with a lot of parents and kids, especially with kids that have an illness, where you want to fix them and you step in and you do everything. And she hit a point where she couldn't do that anymore, and it was causing a problem between the two of us. And that was my learning experience.
Mm-hmm. Step back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's only so much you can do.
Right. Because it's not me.
Right.
It's her body.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that was a big turning point. But in a good way. Mm-hmm. I think I've given her the tools. I think it was good in a way that she got diagnosed young, because I did have so much control over her diet back then. Mm-hmm. And now she's just doing it because she's seen what happens.
Right.
So she's on her own now, and she's just flying.
And you're still going.
Yeah, because I'd love to see this for other people too.
And Keira, I can tell you from firsthand experience, and from you sitting across from me right now doing this show, you are making an impact, and your story is inspiring others. So I thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish you and your daughter all the very best.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Hope and Health is made possible through generous donations. To learn more or support the show, visit mshope.com, where you'll find free science-based resources.